than they would normally, and I think that means that the drivers will have that to contend with in qualifying. The car will behave quite differently on new sets, and I think, well, I know a lot of the teams in free practice only chose to run new fronts and not new tyres all round. So I think that will play a part as well in terms of car balance, and I think you'll see a few of the top guys trying to get their eyes in Q1, knowing that they have got the pace to get to Q2. But yeah, we'll see.
Well, the Volvos were quick, the Ladas were quick, the Hondas all seem to run into slight problems with vibration affecting driver visibility, and Rob Hoff apparently cured that on his car by sending it through the gravel trap. The Hondas here, with Thiago Monteiro and Norbert Michelisz, his teammate, were simulating a Mach 3 run. Now that comes up after qualifying. If you missed the Paul Ricard race weekend 2 weekends ago, what were you doing? But we have a manufacturer point earning team time trial. 3 cars from each of our 3 manufacturers who've got official works entries racing against each other against the clock, and that will be coming up at the end of qualifying. And there's going to be a very different dynamic on this tight and twisty circuit compared to the much faster open expanses of Paul Ricard last weekend. So we'll wait and see who comes out with the best time for their team. We saw the Hondas visiting the gravel trap. Rob Huff went off, towing up behind Thiago Monteiro on their flying lap effort. And we've seen Citroën struggling for pace here. Citroën, to remind you, with 80 kilos of success ballast as being the winning manufacturer from last year. All C-Elysées in the field carry the same weight. And they are 80 kilos heavier than the Hondas and the Chevrolets and the Ladas.
And what that means, Martin, is that these guys have got to get a sucker punch in against Citroën this weekend whilst they've got the weight on.
Well, Thiago Monteiro is the only Honda driver not to have visited the gravel traps so far today. Therefore, he will do it next. Norby, as you saw there, with a big drift through the gravel, and that was earlier on in the first of our free practice sessions. First 20-minute period of qualifying underway here. Cars on their out lap from the pit lane of Slovakia. Martin Hagen, Richard Coleman watching the action with one of the fastest men so far this weekend. Fredrik Ekblom has been the faster of the Volvos in the first free practice. Ted Björk was the faster of them in the second free practice. And it was only in free practice too that anybody got in front of the Volvos on pace, and the only car to do so was Nicky Katzberg in the Lada. Fastest time in FP1, 2 minutes 5.35. In FP2, 2 minutes 5.58. So the track got slower as it got hotter, and we heard Jose Maria Lopez and a couple of the other guys talking about that. What about the increased temperature now? He's out of turn 2 safely, carrying a lot of speed, Lopez. But that extra air temperature robs you of a fraction of power. How much does a brand new set of tyres and full engine mapping give you back, do you think?
It's probably going to be looking around the half a second plus, I would say, around here. And you could see on the outlap, all the drivers were crawling around on their outlap and only starting to put a bit away.
Oh, and that's that set of tyres gone into turn 4. Fast braking area down into turn 3. You've got to carry the speed through turn 4, but it tightens on the exit, and Lopez just overcooked it.
The gravel traps are very deep here, as you can see, so hopefully he's not done too much damage, because he really does need to get on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the rear end got away from him there onto the way into the corner, and that was it.
Well, that was our first effort from the world champion. Tom Chilton, not too far behind him, has actually gone faster in the first section than Lopez did. He's done a 38.4 first sector. Michelisz a 38.38 first sector, 600s quicker than Chilton. Chilton, of course, like Mehdi Banani, like Grégoire de Moustier in a Sebastian Loeb racing run, C-Elysée. So Norby with the fastest first sector. Now Gabriele Tarquini goes quicker for Lada. And we were postulating in free practice that Lada have never earned an outright pole position in World Touring Car Championship racing. And that might change here today as well. And that would be a big story to take away about what weight balancing of various cars can do for the competitiveness of the field.
Absolutely, and I have to confess, I've got a sneaky bet on Lada for this session. I think it could be their maiden pole position. They've shown really good form, and Citroën are very much on the back foot. And by the looks of it, Honda have had a few problems in free practice. You know, Rob Huff not at all happy with his car so far this weekend.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see how things progress during this session.
Norby goes purple again. Banani had gone purple in sector 2, quicker than Ivan Muller, and red flags. Now there's debris on the track at turn 3. That'll be the gravel that was dragged back in. I wonder whether Mirek, our race director, has decided everybody is leaning on the cars so hard, you have got to clear the track. In fact, we're now being told it's turn 13, whereas our timing screen says turn 3, and there is the guilty party. Now, of course, it flies off the car who's online and goes offline, but if you get further offline, oh my goodness, Ugo Valente bouncing over the curbs on the exit of turn 2.
He's lucky to keep that one out of the wall by the looks of it, Martin. It really got away from him.
That was nearly a James Nash moment, wasn't it? Nash had a big off there in one of the Fords a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, our first visit here. There's Viktor Shapovalov, the team boss. The engineers on the pit wall, tall figure of Philippe Leloup, who's been an Orica stalwart for many years, now working in the engineering lineup. So the Citroën team have had their world champion, his first lap scratched, and then he's also brought out a red flag. What he's also done, of course, is ruined everybody else's first flying lap, so he's lost nothing, effectively, because nobody got a quick lap in then.
Yeah, and in reality, no one actually got a time in, so it hasn't disadvantaged anyone more than the other, but if you're in Lada's shoes, you'd be annoyed because both of your drivers have set the quickest times of the session in Sector 1 and Sector 2. So they were on for probably the best lap of Q1 so far. So
now it comes down to one lap, because nobody's going to get more realistically than one flying lap in what remains of the session, because we're going to start again. Those tyres that everybody used, they're not going to get a good lap out of them, so you're immediately onto your second set of tyres. Not that you've done one lap, but you've done 2/3 of one lap, so they're never going to yield anything good. You might take them off and maybe keep them if you need a get-out-of-jail lap right at the end.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe some of the faster cars will leave those tyres on and see if they can get away with it, and they'll probably just put the front tyres on the rear and the rear tyres on the front, because the rears aren't worked as hard in touring car racing.
Lopez is maybe rather more second-hand than that. You saw the damage to Ugo Valente's spoiler, the splitter at the bottom of the car, and that is going to rob him of downforce, and that probably will be enough to keep him out of contention for pole position. They're not going to have time to change it, I don't think, so they're going to need more than one broom there, aren't they?
Yeah, I think when they did the circuit upgrades, they should have ticked the brush box.
Add brushes.
Yeah.
So Lopez back in the pit lane. Now, there isn't a rule here whereby if you cause a red flag during qualifying, you're no longer allowed to take part in the session. They're not quite that brutal here, but as you can see, he has strewn debris everywhere on the circuit. So it's all feet on deck to kick stones off the track. So temporary hold here in the first of our 3 qualifying periods at the Slovakia ring. Was gravel to hide. Norbert Mikulich for Honda, the man who was challenging the Ladas for fastest time in the first of our qualifying periods here at the Slovakia ring. 15 minutes remain on the clock out of the 20, so everybody had just done their installation lap, their out lap, and they were on a flyer when Jose Maria Lopez, who was actually the first man to start a flying lap, went off wide and then brought gravel back all over the track. We're now in a clean-up procedure. Clean up, one of those. Session will be resumed at 2:13, so in about 5 minutes' time.
So, yeah, I think a lot of the guys that saved tyres this morning, this is going to pay dividends now, because these guys have got an extra set. So the guys that were smart this morning and sacrificed a bit of free practice time should pay it back.
Yeah. Okay, so front end is off the number 7 Lada of Hugo Valente. So if they can rebolt or replace the entire front end, then that is clearly going to be beneficial to him. And the splitter tends to be attached to that big front bumper or air dam, I suppose. Actually, it's probably a less technical term, but it's more an indication of what it is, because that the whole front profile is designed specifically, A, to look a bit like the road car, but B, particularly for airflow, to brakes, to radiators, above the car, below the car. It's all about where you channel the air to make the best use of it.
Absolutely, and there's a huge amount of lap time in that part of the car because, like you said, it has to respect the road car cousin, and that's governed by the regulations, but there's quite a lot of freedom in that part of the car where the engineers can find quite a lot of drag reduction and downforce.
And one of the things, of course, you need the air for is to deal with the underbonnet temperatures. These 1.6-litre turbo engines, like your turbocharged either diesel or petrol engine in your road car, the turbo spins at very high rate and gets very hot. These turbos will reach over 1,000 degrees underbonnet, and that needs a lot of cooling. And you can't just leave a hole at the front and hope that it finds its way out. It's got to be ducted through at speed. Well, let's hear from Lada's Victor Shapovalov. Alex Legui is with him.
Just a quick word with Victor here. That was a bit of a bouncy ride there for Hugo. What's happening?
It looked like that Hugo made mistake in corner 2, and he destroyed the splitter. So the team is trying to fix the problem and change the splitter for him.
And how likely is that can happen quickly? It doesn't look like it's happening very quickly.
Hopefully everything will be okay. So.
Best of luck.
Well, Hugo may be up against it now for getting a quick lap. The slight codicil to that will be that he'll be going out of sync with everybody else, and he may get a chance to go out on track, actually, where there's nobody else in. They're all dashing in to try and change their tyres around and make one final stab at getting from Q3 to Q1 through into Q2.
You're just vulnerable if there's someone drop oil or gravel or there's another red flag. So, but yeah, they had no choice really, because performance-wise, that component being damaged is going to really, really affect lap time.
Mehdi Banani first out on track now. Let's hear what the team have to say. Okay, keeping his powder dry, but like Lopez going out first, Banani leading the charge out on track this time, so he was down and out before his factory teammate Ivar Muller, who's the dark red car you can see behind.
These guys, of course, have to carry the same penalty weight as the factory team, and that's really going to affect the likes of Banani, Chilton, de Moustier this weekend, because you know they're still the same off the factory team. So if the factory team is further down the order, it means that they're further down the order as well. So real challenging weekend for those guys.
Yes, if you're Banani and your pace is 0.8 or a second slower than Lopez, and Lopez is a second and a half off the pace, then yes, you count further back from that. And for the new boys to the car, Chilton and de Moustier, who'd never driven it before, Paul Ricard, they drove it in the wet, didn't learn an awful lot about it, drove it in the race, okay, a little bit more, but they're still, you know, at 6s and 7s, they don't have an intuition of what the car will do if they ask it to do certain things, and they're, you know, all of that takes time of learning.
Absolutely. We're just getting a notification from the race control that Tom Coronel's under investigation for not respecting the red flag, and if he's found to be guilty of that, you'll probably see his time removed from this session.
Yes, now he'll have his time removed from the first part of the session, but it can't be removed post-offence.
I think you might find that he's removed from the session altogether.
Well, that would be the other possibility.
Serious offence.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who haven't been keeping up with the action online, incidentally, the parish notices include the return of James Thompson to the championship. We'll see him shortly, hopefully, in the Munich Motorsport Chevrolet. There goes the nose, or a new nose, back onto Hugo Valente's car. So you've got to fix the flat floor. This is like when you're doing your anti-roll bar drop links at home. You've got to unfasten the flat floor, because lots of modern cars have them still, road cars, and then take the bumper off and all the other bits and pieces.
Absolutely, and they're not that easy to change, because all of the interconnecting components are designed for aero purposes, so the fit has to be very, very good. So they're not actually that quick to change, but hopefully Hugo can get out in a few minutes' time and and get through this Q1 session, because he's certainly got a car that is capable of doing that.
Yeah, definitely. He's a driver who's capable of wringing speed out of it as well, we've seen. So Bennani, black first sector for him, which means not even his best, so not as good as his first sector run. He's the first car out on track. Jose Maria Lopez goes purple in the first sector, so new set of tyres on for Pachito. And he remains quicker than Ivan Muller and Thiago Montero and Norbert Michelisz. Wow. So Citroën certainly weren't putting all their eggs in their in one basket during the free practice session. They were not showing what they've got. Lopez with the fastest first sector of the field so far. And Bennani behind Muller, behind Montero. So Bennani is sort of 9th or 10th-ish on this lap, probably by the time everybody shuffles through. Purple in the final sector for him. You see his other two sectors weren't as good as ones that he has done previously. So would this be the set? No, couldn't be the set of tyres really, could it? That he used before?
Unlikely, and I think Citroën certainly have been saving tyres.
I don't know. So did a purple middle sector and then came in. Lopez has gone purple, 1 second quicker in sector 2 alone than Bennani, and Michelisz now goes quicker than him by 0.04 of a second. Norby has the fastest second sector, Lopez quickest at the moment.
That's a very good time.
Yep. 2:04, we've not had anybody break the 2:04 minute barrier so far. Muller goes 2:04.84, so 1200s back. Norby goes second, Montero fourth, Huff fifth, that's where the Hondas are, and Katzberg fourth for Lada. Now, don't forget that there are 3 qualifying sessions. This one will fix positions 13 on down, and it will decide the 12 cars that go through into Q2, at the bottom of which pile at the moment is 19-year-old Hungarian Ferenc Fischer, and he is in the lime and grey Zengo Motorsport Honda. Out of the, he's now being bumped by Grégoire de Moustier. Fischer is 13th, de Moustier 12th. Thompson, Coronel and de Moustier on the bubble.
See, with that red flag, Martin, it's quite difficult really to see where everyone is.
Yep.
For all we know, Katzberg's gone out on the same tyres he'd started with, and therefore he's just confident enough that he can be in the top 12 to get through. He knows it's not important for the grid, so I think we'll wait and see how that pans out with the tyre allocation.
And here is the other thing we haven't seen. We haven't yet seen a completed flying lap from the Volvos, which were fastest 1 and 2 in first practice, and went 2-3 behind Nicky Katzberg's Lada in second practice. Now, if they can break the 2:04s, and it shows that they're continuing to find more pace, because they were all in the 2:05s this morning.
Yeah, well, he's fastest through the first sector.
38.1, didn't make a note of what Lopez's was, but it can't have been much more than 38.1 flat. He's 36 thousandths quicker, so there's your answer. He's done a 36.1 dead. Lopez therefore did a 36.136.
Volvos look good all weekend, but as we sort of said earlier, Martin, sometimes they seem to run full power in the free practice sessions, where some of the other teams sort of save that for this session. So we'll see how much that affects it, but they're definitely one of the cars to beat this weekend.
Now, it looks like a stable platform, and yet it rotates well, it corners well, it generates good grip in the turns and can carry the speed through them. So, you know, that's a neat trick. Being stable and being able to turn are opposite ends of the magnet, and you're trying to bring them as close together, aren't you?
Absolutely. The Volvo's look the best balanced car all weekend, I would say. Seems to be very stable through the high speed, and like you said, gets the rotation in the lower speed. Bjork's trying very hard on this lap, though. He's just got a little bit untidy towards the end of this lap.
Personal best lap for him, and again, might still be on the tyre that he started his first qualifying run on. Comes to the line, and he is 1600ths of a second back, 4th place. So that is 4 cars covered by 1600ths. Lopez, Michelisz, Muller and Björk.
Interesting that Ekblom's in the pits.
Jose Maria Lopez fastest with 7 minutes just under to go. Michaelis second, Muller third, Bjork fourth. And then the best of Larders is Tarquini ahead of Chilton in the Citroën, Katzberg's Lada, Montero and Huff in their Hondas 8th and 9th, John Philippi in 10th, Thompson and Coronel 11th and 12th in the Chevrolets. But, as Richard has just pointed out, Fredrik Ekblom has not completed a flying lap. He's done 2 out laps.
And nor's Hugo Valente, and they're both cars that are capable of top 5.
But of course, we know why Valente wasn't. He's just come back out with a new splitter on because he went off at high speed at turn 2 through the gravel. But we do not know why Fredrik Ekblom has only just come out of the pits.
Maybe after that aborted run, he was confident he could just do it on the one attempt. But both those cars are capable of being top 5, so we'll see where they are in a couple of minutes' time because they're both on circuit.
Well, we said waiting for the front end to be sorted out might give Hugo an empty track, and it has given Hugo an empty track. Ferenc Fischer is on track, Mehdi Benani is on track, Fredrik Ekblom and Gregoire de Moustier have just left the pits, and Lopez and Muller are circulating, but that means only 6 cars on track, which effectively means Hugo's got it all to himself. So the excuse book is empty at the moment.
It certainly is. Just need Hugo not to overdrive. He's a very young driver, and you can definitely accuse him in the past of being a bit too hot-headed, so hopefully he's calmed down from his error and he can just get a solid lap on the board in this Q1 session.
Well, he's always produced really quick qualifying laps, hasn't he? And quite often has not produced a race start to match it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he's going to be a star of the future. I think he's an exceptional driver, and he's very, very exciting to watch.
Well, listen, I'm old enough to be able to remember where Jimmy Thompson was reckoned to be a wild, wild young man who was probably never going to calm down. Not quite old enough to remember the same about James Hunt, but, very much the same things have been identified about anybody who's got speed, a rough diamond. Takes a little bit of polishing.
And he's in a great environment with Katzberg, who's like a very model professional driver, and Tarquini, he's probably the most experienced driver in this championship as his teammates. So hopefully this year will be the learning year for him that he needs to become one of the stars.
Benani smoking the tyres into the final corner, locking up as late as he dared, but look at Valente, he's gone purple in the second sector. Lopez is on pole at the moment, but Valente is heading to the top of the pile. Benani goes third, ahead of Ivan Muller. And Hugo Valente, 16th in the Lada. 12th place is James Thompson, who has left the pits to try and get himself into Q2. Valente comes across the line, fastest of all by 11 hundredths of a second.
Great lap. Also, great lap from Benani. Don't forget, he's plus 80 kilos. So I'm actually quite surprised at that because he's been looking very off the pace all weekend.
Well, Lopez second, Benani fourth, Muller fifth. Those are the fastest 3 Citroëns with their 80 kilos of ballast. We did say earlier, you made the point, that on a 1-lap flyer, that 80 kilos is going to have an effect, but not as much of an effect as trying to do 13, 14, 15, 16 consistently fast race laps is going to have.
Absolutely, and without the likes of safety cars and things like that, the Citroëns are really going to struggle tomorrow, so it's even more important that they qualify well this afternoon. Otherwise, by the end of the race tomorrow, they're going to be sitting ducks to some of the other cars.
Tom Coronel currently 14th and awaiting investigation by the stewards. Now, whether that is going to germanely change qualifying or not, I'm not sure. Fredrik Ekblom, 1200ths up on his best time. Ooh, 62 hundredths away in the second sector. So he's going to be well over a second off by the end of this lap, which will leave him not an awful lot further forward than he is now.
No, and considering...
With 2 minutes to go and everybody else is on track, or the other people down the bottom end of the top 10 are on track trying to get in a quick lap.
Considering his pace throughout the whole weekend, this could be a really big scalp.
This could be his slowest lap of the weekend. 2:05.1, he did a 2:05.3 earlier on, and then a 2:05.26. So he has got quicker, but not in the way that the rest of the field has progressed.
No, he needs to stay on it on this lap and see if he can wring another lap out of those tyres. But because the degradation's so high around here, it's very difficult to do that.
And here's Tomo, 14th, and looking to try and get himself into Q2. Hasn't driven a racing car in about 12 months, and this car very different from the Lada that he drove before, very different again from the Seat, from the Honda, from the Alfa. the various generations of Larders he's driven. So yet another bit of experience going into Thompson's data banks.
Yeah, seemed to be sort of missing apexes a little bit there, like it got a bit more too much understeer in the car again.
Half a second away in the first sector. Glad to be back, but frustrated not to be on top of the car.
And while we're watching this, Tarquini's on an absolute flyer. He's just at the fastest sector of anybody in Sector 1.
Well, he's not going to let young Hugo take all the glory, is he? And grab Lada's first outright pole on speed. If it's up there, Tarquini wants to be in the mix for it as well.
And my £10 bet's looking better by the moment.
Tomo's fastest lap was 1.61 away. He's already 1.60 away. This is not going to move him up the order, I'm afraid. No improvement for James, remains in 15th, and that is where he will start both races as likely as not. Tom Coronel, should he lose all his times, as might be possible, is behind him anyway, so Jimmy will get no benefit from that.
And Ekblom's backed off, but maybe he's trying one cool-down lap.
He can't, there's only 49 seconds left. Tarquini's gone off, he's burned his bridges there. And this is the final corner again. It's such a long straight, Richard. You come down the incline, you've got this long, wide open entry. It's like going into Copse, except unlike Copse, it doesn't open up. It tightens and tightens, and if you get in late, there's so much dirt out there now, you're just on the grey and you're washing out to the gravel trap, and it's never coming to you.
And as we said earlier, on a fast lap, it's very easy to be greedy into that corner.
And Katzberg goes 7th quickest, so he's ahead of Tarquini. Tarquini just grabbed the brake, not even a tenth, a few hundredths of a second perhaps later than he could get away with. And Coronel is flying, checkered flag is out, he's taken it, has he? Or did he start the lap beforehand? No, he has not been shown as taking the checkered flag.
So the luckiest boys out there at the moment are Ekblom and Huff.
Yes, 11th and 12th, unless Coronel improves and then is allowed to keep this time. Oh, Ferenc Fischer in the Zengo Motorsport Honda. No, he's about a second off.
Yeah.
He's doing his personal best lap, but he's 2.75 behind, and he needs to be 1.5, so it's not going to be enough. Jimmy T on another lap, but unfortunately it's a long way away from a quick one. Not enough left in the tyre or the car. So Ferenc Fischer has in fact taken the checkered flag, first to do so with a 2:07.20, his fastest lap. You say, okay, well, he's 19 years old, very, very inexperienced, as Norbert Mikelic was when he first came into the Zengo team. But Ferenc has lapped just 0.2 of a second slower than Tom Coronel, who's at the opposite end of the experience scale in terms of racing drivers.
Yeah, Katzberg on a quick Sector 1, but he should just back off because there's nobody's going to threaten him, so I'm sure he'll just box at the end of this lap.
Yeah, he's done a 1:02 second sector, which is reeling it off the pace. So Coronel looking fairly relaxed. I think this is going to be into the pits. This does not look like a hot one. Certainly doesn't sound like a hot one either. Q1 finishes, Hugo Vallant, Jose Maria Lopez on top of the pile. Ekblom and Huff also go through from John Philippi in 13th on down. They are now parked. Warm afternoon at the Slovakia ring. We are half an hour away from the Slovak capital, Bratislava. Martin Haven and Bamboo Engineering's director Richard Coleman in the booth. Richard, Q1, we've lost among our potential front runners a couple that we might not have expected. Tom Coronel is among them.
A very frustrating result there, Tom. You looked to be positive earlier. I know you struggled a little bit in practice. What happened? What's the situation?
For practice 2, I went off in T2. We changed something on the splitter and everything. But I could... There's something burning on the car. I could smell it already in run 1. And now it's even getting worse. So there's something not right. Feels first I was metal. You know, when metal, there's a special smell. And after also plastic or carbon, I don't know. So something is not right. I mean, everything feels okay, but somehow I couldn't do it. I don't understand it because I'm a lot slower on new tires with old tires. So it's a weird situation.
Very frustrating result.
Well, that's one of the joys of racing cars, isn't it? That just occasionally they do something for which there is no proper explanation. You go, okay, well, we've put new tyres on, we've changed nothing else, and the car's now going slower. So what's up with that? Now, it might just be a legacy of his trip through the gravel trap.
To be honest, at circuits like this, sometimes the new tyres really affect the car balance, because this is a circuit where in the middle of the sector you want to try and lose rear grip. And sometimes if you go new tyres all round, the setup changes quite a lot, and sometimes you can have too much grip towards the rear, and all of a sudden you're going slower on new tyres, which is a bit of an odd phenomenon, but it can be explained by that. But I think, yeah, he's obviously been caught out by a balance change.
And part of it might be, well, the extra heat in the day, and now we're going to get a bit of shading on the track. Track temperature may come down a little lower, probably not quickly enough or far enough to make a real difference here to our qualifying session. We now go into Q2, 10 minutes for the fastest 12 cars, at the end of which the fastest five of this bunch will progress to Q3. We'll explain later on. Actually, we'll explain now what it means as they're on their outlap. So, from 13th on down, that's where you're now starting for both of the races on Sunday. As you go into the Fast 12, at the end of this session, whoever is 11th and 12th, that's where they will start for both races on Sunday. And then we get the fastest five go through into Q3, and they will set the top 5 positions or with their Q3 lap. Now, in previous years, those top 10 positions would be imposed on the race 1 grid. However, the opening race now has the reverse of that qualifying top 10 result, i.e. the man who is 10th fastest in this session will start the opening race on pole position, and therefore have potentially the best opportunity to go out and win points, win big points in the opening race, and then perhaps double up in the second race. So whoever goes fastest of all, whoever gets pole position at the end of Q3, will have to wait until race 2 before they can use that pole position, before they get to the main race. So they've got to survive that opening race with the car intact, the way that your 9th and 10th place guys always used to have in the old system, before they can play that joker card, if you like, in the second of the encounter. So for guys like Lopez and Muller and the Lada drivers and well, maybe even all the Honda drivers as well, if you're shooting for that pole, you've got to survive race 1 before you get the benefit.
Absolutely, and for us, the viewer, it's very exciting, because it means that the guy who's got the pole position and the fastest guy here has got to really protect his position in that first race and not be too cautious because he needs the points, but also look after the car for race 2. I'm sure some of the teams moan because you're the fastest guy on the circuit, you do the best job, and then you sort of put to 10th for the first race. But it's really exciting for us because it means that they're all kind of a bit out of a position, but it also means that they've also got something to lose. They can't just get off the line and get away.
Yeah. Benny Bernardi's girlfriend with his father there in the garage. Haven't seen his mum so far this year. I'm sure we will catch up with them in Marrakesh. Father and mother, both racing drivers. And Mehdi in the top 4 in Q1 could well be with a great shot of going through into Q3. Fredrik Ekblom looking out to his right. He's checking to see what's coming.
He's going to be very out of sync, and not only on his out lap, but also his fast lap will be the other car's in lap. So it's not in the best position for that kind of thing.
Fastest first sector, nobody yet, because they were coming out of the pit lane. Up to speed in the second sector. Tom Chilton very much quicker than anybody else. 14 seconds quicker than anybody else.
Yeah, you'll find drivers on their out lap have to really crawl here because the circuit's so abrasive and the tyre degradation is so high that actually they need to really be careful on their out lap. They've got to protect the tyres for that first lap.
So first flying lap of Q2. Just a 10-minute session. You have to be really on it if you think you might need a second run to get through into Q3, or you want a second run. The way Lopez is going for it, he's not aiming for 10th place. And Gabrielli, that'll be the second time this morning he's gone off wide over that gravel track. Just got away with that.
I'm not sure he has, Martin. It looks like he's got a lot of grass across the radiator duct. Yeah. So I think he could well be in a bit of trouble there.
Freshly mown grass. Lopez fastest on the first sector. And second quickest is Mikelish. But he is 79 thousandths slower. Nobody else with a 38.0. Next quickest, Hugo Vallant, third in his Lada in sector 1. Ted Björk and Fredrik Ekblom in the Volvos last out. Muller now goes quicker in sector 2 than Lopez. So the two championship front runners for Citroën are battling each other for the pole here, with Norby, who goes quicker again. Norby quickest of all so far in sector 2. Lopez comes across the line, a 2:04.52. Is that enough? Should be enough to get him into Q3. Ivan is second. Rob Huff goes third. Norby goes on top of the pile. Norby, Lopez, Muller, Huff, Montero. That's your 5. Where are the Ladas? Katzberg goes second. Ugo Valenti now in sector 3. Mehdi Banani in sector 3 is 7th. Valente crosses the line in 9th because Tarquini goes up to 7th ahead of Banani and Valente. So your top 5 at the moment you can see on screen as Banani tries to squeeze another one in, or a hurry up back to the pits lap to try and get fresh tyres applied. Banani not quicker on this lap. So Norby for Honda, Nicky Katzberg for Lada, Jose Maria Lopez and Ivan Muller for Citroën, and Rob Huff for Honda.
So the Volvos are now slightly out of sync with everybody else, so they'll be starting their hot laps now. And Gabrielli's back right off, so he's probably got quite high engine temperatures with a radiator grille full of grass.
Of course, the other issue for Tarquini, as the ultimate pro that he is that he has to make sure he's not getting in anybody else's way. So he will be aware, hopefully, from the team on the radio that there are blue things coming up quick behind, but he's in the middle of the road, gets out of the way well enough. Don't think that would have impeded Fredrik Ekblom in any way. Green in the first sector, but Ekblom 1,400 slower than Nicky Katzberg's first sector, and Ted Björk is a couple of hundred slower.
Yeah, they're sort of 2/10 off in that first sector. That's a very simple sector to lose 2/10 as well. So I think, as we said before, Volvo slightly showed their hand in free practice, while everybody else had some power in reserve.
Well, as they've said, this is a test session the entire season. They've gone with what they've got. They'll perhaps finesse their tactical strokes a little bit more when they've got the car. Well, they understand the car a little more. Everywhere they go this season will be a new track to them. They won't have a background baseline. It's not a development of something they've raced before that they can base it on. So it's sort of suck it and see, simulator, engineering now, and everything else in the melting pot. And some days you're going to be a lot closer, and some days you're going to be a degree further away.
The Volvo's got a great base. I mean, there's not too much in-season development gone on with this car yet, so the fact that they're really up there already, I think they're in for a really good season in their debut sort of proper year with a two-car effort.
Absolutely so. And Fredrik Ekblom, 2:05.27.
Lost a lot of time.
Björk goes 6th quickest, yes. He lost 4/10 to his teammate, and that's in the second sector alone, and that's the difference pretty much. No, in fact, Ted Björk was a 10th faster in sector 1 and a 10th slower in sector 3. So it was pretty much the middle section that Ted Björk, whatever they've got. And, you know, Richard, as the team boss, you might well be going into this with a slightly split setup choices between your two drivers, because that doubles what you learn.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Volvo risked that in the qualifying session. I think they'll be fair to the drivers, that they'll give them the best setup for them. I'd be surprised if they're experimenting now. But I mean, yeah, I mean for sure, like Volvo have done a very, very good job, and they're very, very competitive already. And the way the regulations are written in World Touring Car, they've actually got a lot of development avenues available to them, which teams like Honda, for example, don't. So I think they could be in for a really, really good season.
Yeah. And whatever it is that Ted Björk is doing or has done to his car seems to be working slightly better than whatever Fredrik Ekblom is doing. At the moment, Chilton and Ekblom will start 11th and 12th. And at the moment, pole for the opening race will be Ugo Valente. Now, it's not an outright fastest lap pole, but he will still start front and centre on Sunday lunchtime. There's Viktor Shapovalov, the team boss, and he's got another car to play. At the moment, 10th, 9th and 8th, so the first 3 cars on the opening race will be Lada, Bernani's Citroën, and Lada with Valente and Gabriele Tarquini starting 1st and 3rd.
And that's looking really good for Lada, because don't forget, Bernani starting with 80 kilos. He's going to really struggle race pace-wise, so if Valente can get away cleanly, he's going to have an excellent chance of winning race 1.
Well, if he doesn't, Gabriele, who, as we know, is the world's greatest starter of a front-wheel drive car ever, trademark, will be straight by both of them. Because, I mean, obviously now he won't. Having said that, he will fluff the start for the first time in living memory, but Tarquini can outstart just about anybody and anything in the front-wheel drive racing car.
And of course, Lada still have Katzberg, who's shown excellent pace all weekend. They're even in with a shout of outright pole for the feature race.
Well, Bernani's very happy. He will start Sunday's race action again on the front row of the grid. And of course, he will go through with Lopez and Muller into Mach 3. So opening race pole goes to Ugo Valente. He will be our DHL pole sitter at midday tomorrow.
I have to say, it's a very, very good lap from Bernani as well. He's actually only 2/10 off Ivan Muller there.
Yeah. And Muller with Lopez go through into Q3, which will shortly start. Mehdi Bernani, the Moroccan driver with Sebastian Loeb Racing, will start his Citroën from the front row tomorrow. Big hug from his dad, and he will be on the outside front row. Not quite such a big hug from his girlfriend, or a lower down hug, mate. I probably shouldn't go down that avenue either. Ugo Valente will start on pole position for Lada. And that is a good qualifying run from Valente, especially after going off and taking the splitter out, putting himself behind the 8-ball at the beginning of the qualifying session. Valente producing another good lap. Now, it might be that there was other issues with that trip through the gravel, Richard. That means that he couldn't produce the pace that Nick Katzberg did. But that might be purely a driver thing as well. Maybe Alex Le Gui can ask those questions. She's with Hugo.
Down here with pole man. Here we go, Hugo. It's the second time you've done it this year, but hopefully we'll get a better result this time.
Yeah, for sure. No, tomorrow we'll be hoping for a podium. Maybe a race victory as well, because we've shown some great pace in Q1 with pole, the real pole position, I'd say. A bit disappointed not to go to Q3, to be honest. My lap in Q2 was not the best. I lost 3/10 in the last corner only. It was a big locking. I almost went out again. So I think the car is really fast, but it's very hard to drive. Almost went out twice in this qualifying. So
it obviously wasn't a strategy thing then. You really were pushing for Q3.
We're gonna say it was, but it wasn't. Yeah, no. Well, I mean, very lucky to finish P10, but obviously we were hoping for Q3 and the real pole. Maybe Nicky will do it. He's shown some great pace, and we have the same car, so I believe he can do it. But yeah, no, very happy for the team. We've done P1 in Q1, P2 in Q2. We'll see about Q3, and yeah, tomorrow for sure we'll go hard for some podiums and maybe a victory.
And go hard for a good start as well.
Yeah, that will happen. That'll be good.
So, a lot of optimism and youthful exuberance within the Lada team. And they are guys who are not quite sure what giving up means at all, are they? They really do put all the effort in. So our fastest 5 cars go through.
I have to say, Rob Huff has done a very, very good job. He has not been comfortable in his car all weekend. He's really struggled. And yeah, there he is again into Q3. He's top 5 whatever happens. And you know, that's Rob Huff on a bad day. He's really ground that out.
And he's not the only man to have gone off either. You just saw their replay of Jose Maria Lopez going off. In fact, Lopez is off at the beginning of Q1, brought out the red flags and caused everybody to have a mild panic about tyre usage and tyre wear and everything else, and immediately on to plan B on the strategy book. Well, let's hear what Nicky Katzberg and Lada have to say to each other.
You can do it, so, you know, like, I know it's not easy, I know it's hard, so let's just see what we can do. At least we're in Q3.
That's his engineer Dave Scott trying to give him massive confidence, and then the opposite. But yeah, no, I think Katzberg has probably got an outside chance of pole this afternoon. He's if he can get it together.
Well, they've got a good shot, they really have. And what's going to be very interesting is when we finish Q3 and we go into Mach 3 with our 3 manufacturers' teams, they'll go in reverse of their championship point standings. So as last time out, Lada will set the benchmark, and then is it Citroën who are leading the manufacturer standings? I haven't got a point sheet with me, or Honda.
I think it's Honda.
I think it's Honda. So Citroën will go second and Honda will go last of all. 3 cars from a standing start at the start-finish line will do 2 flying laps. Or 2 laps, 1 standing start lap, 1 flying lap.
Good job.
Yeah. You see, now this is when the boys work really hard and they turn the car around quickly and the guy goes out and does a good job with it and gets them a pole position. That is the reward that you're looking for as a mechanic, isn't it? You know, that was always the thing with all the great drivers. They ask for an awful lot, and when you do it and they go out and produce the goods, it makes you more inclined to do it again and try even harder the next time. That really builds that bond between a team and its driver.
Absolutely, although sometimes racing drivers are the first to throw the toys out the pram if the team have made a mistake. But yeah, I mean, it's good that Hugo's showing that, because he's a very young driver, so it's good that he's got that maturity to thank the boys, because they did sort of save his bacon a little bit there. You know, that off, he damaged the front of the car, and that probably would have cost him quite a lot of time. So I think he's a very lucky boy to get that car back out in some ways.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, luckily the damage didn't go too far back down the car. They did a good job in turning him around and getting him back out. So we go with our fast 5 as we head into our 3rd and final period of qualifying. Q3 getting underway here at the Slovakia ring. Beautiful sunny afternoon, lots of Hungarian fans in the grandstand, and the first car out on track will be car number 12. That is the Castrol Honda of world champion Rob Huff. It's our 2012 world champion. 13? 12. 12 world champion. Questioning myself now. With the 2013 world manufacturers champion Honda. He goes out, starts his warm-up lap, and then will produce a flying lap. And as soon as he begins the flying lap, the pit lane would open to allow Ivan Muller to go out, who will go second. They go in reverse order of their first run performance, which means the man with the fastest time in Q2. Not the first run, the Q2 performance. Man with the fastest time, Norbert Mikulich, will be last out for Honda. Great view of the pedal box of Huffy's car. You see a lot of these drivers, even if they didn't come from a single-seater background, are now driving these cars as a 2-pedal car, accelerator and brake. The clutch pedal does not an awful lot of work once you leave the pit lane. They have the sequential gear shifters, and the electronics allow you to just use the lever to change the gear, and they blip the engine on down changes and cut it on up changes and so on. The stuff that you do yourself in your road car. Drivers are just inherently lazy. That's what it is. That's what
Again, exactly.
You think they'll hear that?
Exactly. and whilst he's driving very lazily,
it's
again, these drivers just know that the tyre deck is so high here that they've got to be very, very careful on their outlaps, because they need that grip on the opening couple of turns here, which are the fastest turns on the track. I think the guys are doing just over, well, 211 kilometres an hour through turn 2, so it's pretty scary stuff.
There's Huff Daddy. Got to say hello to Rob's mum, who's back at home, and good luck to the doggies. And also, and I haven't been chastised because Rob's mum is back home, but forgot to say hello to the Middle Eastern branch of the family as well. So, hello, Franny. So that's checked all my requisite Huff family mentions for the weekend. I'm good to go. And they'll give me coffee and hot again.
So this is a great look at that last turn, Martin, that is catching a lot of drivers out. And this is where even drivers on a very, very good lap have lost it all in the space of a few metres, just being too greedy in that turn. So let's see what Huffy's got this lap.
So big break at the end of the front straight into turn 1. The entry is important, but the exit very important, because you've got to carry the speed over the rise and down into turn 2. And down into turn 2, you can't see this flat out in top gear corner before you get over the top of the rise, and then if your line is wrong, it's really wrong. Uses a lot of curb on the exit. Pit lane is open now for Ivan Muller to begin his warm-up lap. Rob's dad watching the action. Safely out of the big break at turn 3 and 4. And that's where we saw Jose Maria Lopez loop the car round early on in qualifying. Purple sector for Rob. Now, does that mean it's the fastest that anybody has produced so far in qualifying, full stop, or just in Q3?
I think it's Q3.
I think it is. Anti-lag popping and banging as he rolls off the throttle and onto the brake.
Rob was a little bit greedy in that corner, didn't trouble the apex too much, lost a bit of time through there. Like we were saying, he's really sort of struggled this weekend, not been happy with car balance, so it's great to see him up here in Q3. He's done an exceptional job to get through.
Like us, Thiago wants to see the lap. Really, thank you. And then on the long back straight, this leads down to the final turn. Again, another rise. That's to allow access roads to go through under the track to get to the internal twisty bits. And one of the key braking areas, or the key braking area on the track really, is that final braking area before this corner, because it governs so much speed here. And of course, when you're racing all the way down into turn 1 as well. Rob comes across the line with a 2:04.751. So that is 11 hundredths of a second. No, it's not. It is 11 hundredths of a second, 11 thousandths of a second quicker than he produced in Q2. He did a 2:04.762. He's now done a 7:51. So next up is Ivan Muller.
An even slower outlap by the looks of it, protecting those tyres.
Yeah, has an 80-kilo ballast addition to the C-Elysée that the others don't have to worry about. The champion manufacturer from last year carrying that 80 kilos of success ballast for the Paul Ricard and Slovakia Ring race weekends, and it will be renegotiated based on the antediluvian and rather Byzantine set of regulations that balance speed against success ballast. And Richard Coleman, working it out lunchtime, reckons that unless something major changes, Honda might actually have the heaviest car when we go to the Hungara Ring in a week's time, which won't please Norbert Mikelic or many of his Hungarian fans.
No, certainly won't. And again, Hungary's not a circuit you want to be carrying weight. A lot of undulations and long constant radius corners, not too dissimilar to this circuit here in Slovakia.
So 2:04.710 was his best in Q2. Let's see how he shapes up against that and against Rob Huff's 2:04.75. So in theory, Muller should be able to stay in front of Huffy. First sector is a short but fast one. Corner 1, corner 2, and then over the brow and You go down into the braking area for turn 3, and that's where the end of the sector is, and he is up by half a second getting on.
The first sector is probably the kindest on the weight penalty that the Citroën is carrying, so we expect them to be quite competitive through there, and as we said, they are going to qualify well, but I think the big penalty will be tomorrow afternoon when they have to do this for umpteen laps.
Yeah.
It's going to be very difficult come the end of Sunday afternoon with these tyres.
Especially if you don't start on the front row. If you're starting second or third row, then you don't even have the advantage of being able to get your elbows out and keep people behind you. There are some already in front of you, and that gap's not going to get any smaller. Now, interestingly, in Q2, Ivan was the quicker of the Citroëns in Sector 2, and in fact, I have a suspicion that he was actually faster than Norby in Sector 2 as well. The twisty bit, obviously, is where the driver makes the difference, being quick on the fast bits. That's where the bravery makes the difference. It's the fluidity, the technique, the experience that you can bring to bear.
Particularly for those front-wheel drive experts, which you'd have to say, you know, Van is one of the top guys in that sense. So, yeah, that kind of sector suits his driving style. We have to be very, very precise, not work the tyres too hard. It's not just about bravery, it's about that technique, that slow-speed skill.
Yep. 62 hundredths up, or 6 hundredths up rather. 6 tenths up now, 8 tenths up. Wow, look at that. That is a big lap.
That's a very, very quick lap time.
Well, Citroën might have accidentally allowed themselves to go rather too quickly at the moment. Is it just race laps, or do qualifying laps get put into the mixture?
No, qualifying laps do as well. So, yeah, they certainly do. Top 2 cars from each brand form the quite a complicated algorithm that the FIA used to predict the weights for the next round.
Making a note, that is absolutely guaranteed. The first use of the word algorithm in World Touring Car Championship commentary ever.
I don't know what it means, of course.
Oh, I know. None of us know what it means. We do know what it does, though. It's a formula.
Yes, absolutely, and it gives Mr. Lopez here 80 kilos in his car at the moment, which he's going to have to struggle around this racetrack tomorrow afternoon.
Down the back straight, building up a little bit of speed, but not overly, because the last corner is so long, you can go in it at walking pace and still come out at race pace. And that is exactly what he's doing. What's he doing there? 45 miles an hour? That's an FP0 speed.
If that.
Yeah, well, that's my FP0 speed. That's what I'm comfortable with. Here he comes, flying out of the final turn. And Pechito, 2:04.52 in the Q2 run.
Of course, the team will have told him what Ivan's time was, and he'll be able to keep his eye on that throughout the lap at each split point.
And of course, they'll have said to him, go to whatever map is the one that is required for getting the most juice out of the engine in this particular temperature, humidity balance. Because gone are the days where you tickle your SU and see if the float's in the right place. You know, it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. So where is the split? Down into the braking area. That white line we just flashed across, 74 thousandths of a second behind. That's that's more than double the gap that was between Citroën and Lada in Mach 3 last week.
Yeah, you kind of expected Lopez to be quicker in Sector 1, actually, and Ivan to have the edge in Sector 2. So maybe Ivan is on for out-qualifying his teammate.
Ivan has got a 2 sizes too small race suit on, so he's really breathing in deep in those corners, isn't he? Keeping everything tucked inside the body cavity. So where is Lopez going to find 75 thousandths of a second, and conceivably going to need quite a lot more to be on pole position? Still 2 cars to come. So often we've seen Pechito and/or Muller and/or Seb Loeb being the last car out and tilting for pole. He's tilting for pole now just as much. Cross the line, end of Sector 2, 3 tenths back. And at this rate, he's going to be behind Norby.
Yeah, he's left too much to do. He's definitely not going to be on pole, I don't think, Martin. He's not enough to get back in Sector 3, so...
No, unless he's found a shortcut. Ivan Muller will remain the fastest man, but will he be in front of Michelisz? I beg your pardon, in front of Huff?
Yeah, stunning
Yes.
third sector, but obviously not enough to get the time back that he'd lost to Ivan. Yeah, ending up just shy of 3/10 slower than his teammate.
So Ivan Muller, 2:03.910 the lap. He is the fastest man around Slovakia ring with 2 cars still to go.
Pretty depressing for the opposition that
starting his warm-up lap, Nicky Katzberg, 4th of our 5 cars in Q3. Norbert Mikulich will go out last, and Ivan Muller, having looked to be pretty much nowhere, rarely troubling the top 10 in free practice, has gone out and laid down a snorting lap, which Richard is getting on for 4 seconds quicker than he produced in free practice.
Yeah, pretty depressing for the opposition because, as we've said, Citroën have a big weight penalty here, and that'll get recalculated for the next race. So, like the Lada team and the Honda team particularly really wanted to be taking some points out of Citroën this weekend while they have that vulnerability. But you have to say that Citroën on a bad day are still very, very difficult to beat.
Muller, 2:07.3, the fastest lap he achieved in both of the free practice sessions. He's just done a qualifying lap at 2:03.9, 2.4 seconds quicker. That's 3.4 seconds quicker, I beg your pardon.
Katzberg so far in with a shout on this lap.
Wow. 0.006 of a second away. And of the 2 young guns, maybe the calm ahead, there's Ivan watching, is the mighty Citroën C-Elysée, the world champion for the last 2 years, going to be beaten by Lada's Vesta. Don't forget we have Mach 3 to go as well.
And the lap time is won and lost in the section of the circuit that Nicky's on now. So we'll soon see. It's yeah, half. Sorry, the third sector is half that of the middle sector. So this is where the lap is won and lost.
And it looks neat and tidy, and there was a Citroën there on the dirt. Lopez did not get out of the way and back to the pit lane quickly enough. He was having a proper mims. 2300s up, 23 thousandths up. Not even 2300s, 23 thousandths of a second.
Greedy.
Nicky Katzberg could be producing something very special right here, right now. Really smooth looking run from Katzberg. Will he be quicker than Muller? He is not quicker than Muller. 40 thousandths of a second.
As we were saying,
wow.
Too greedy in that last corner. That corner, when you know you're on a good lap, it's so tempting to just take a bit too much out of it. I mean, Lada all applause there, but that was definitely a possible pole position.
Wow. But, you know, was it that he took too much? Was it that the tyre just didn't quite have enough left in it? You know, when we're talking hundredths of a second, it's hard to even imagine that his judgment is that finite.
Yeah, but if you look at the time, I think he was a little bit too greedy on the brakes. Just seemed to run a little bit too deep from that camera angle.
Well, that means it is either 4-time world champion Ivan Muller or 2-time independent champion Norbert Mikulich, who will take pole position. Norby is the final challenger. He was fastest in Q2, quicker than Muller, who was only 4th fastest, with a 2:04.29, and he needs to take 3/10 out of that. Well, if he's not in the purple in the first sector, then he might be in big trouble on this one.
Yeah, although as long as he's close, he'll be okay. The first sector is always quite close because only a couple of turns, it's all about straight line. So as long as he's close, it's still doable.
Avoids the gravel, and he is within a few hundredths. No, he's okay. 96 hundredths.
Although having said that, the turn just after that timing line did not look neat and tidy at all. So maybe even that split was slightly flattering.
That 3-4 transition is very difficult and really key because it sets you up for this little run of corners. He can hear how much the engine, the gearbox, the brakes are working here, the squeal of the brakes, the engine, as the gearbox goes up and down. You're constantly moving the car around here, and this is where the Citroën suffers most. Shifting that weight forwards and backwards and side to side makes a big difference. Norby using all the roads through turn 9. Big break again here, downhill into the braking area. Little lock-up, drifts out wide. Oh, girlfriend watching from the Honda garage. And across the line, he's behind again, 4/10. Ivan's going to be on pole. Norby's not going to bring that back from here, surely.
Yeah, he's going to struggle for third here, I think, with that. I mean, I think he's going to be just ahead of his teammate, Rob Huff.
Yep. So we might well have Norby in front of Huffy. But Ivan Muller, unless Norby finds some amazing pace through the final corner, Ivan Muller will be on pole for the main race here, and Michelisz goes 4th. Rob Huff in 5th will start on row 3 of the main race grid. Norby with the world champion alongside him, and Nicky Katzberg with Ivan Muller on pole for the main race. That's the second encounter here, the longer of the 2 races. So Ivan Muller, where did he find that lap? He's just pulled out another stunning effort.
Amazing when you consider the weight that Ivan's running. I mean, it's an incredible lap to not make a mistake. But as we know, we're going to have a race on our hands tomorrow, because these guys are going to struggle towards the end of the race, last sort of 3/4 distance. They're going to have to really be thinking about time management. And therefore, you know, Lada have got a car that's capable of winning both races.
Yep.
You know, they're in a very, very strong position.
And Honda are sort of in the middle of both grids. And the Citroën front runners, Muller and Lopez, will start at the sharp end of one and at the bottom of the top 10 of the other. So Ivan will be 10th for our opening race. Nicky Katzberg 9th, Jose Maria Lopez 8th. But should they survive in one piece and happily, then Ivan will start the main race from pole position. Well, 2 weeks ago, it was Jose Maria Lopez that went to his special draw of outstanding qualifying laps and produced one that rocked everybody back. Today, though, it's 4-time world champion Ivan Muller who has produced a truly outstanding qualifying lap with a car that really almost has no business to be going that fast, even on one single lap. But that's where the experience comes into play. Nicky Katzberg, second quickest, 0.04 of a second away from pole position.
Could have been pole.
Could have been pole, he says. Well, let's hear from the man who not could have, would have, but is on pole for the main race, Ivan Muller.
Here he is, pole man for the main race, Ivan Muller. Congratulations, what a lap. You clearly were not showing your cards in practice.
No, we were at the maximum we could with the tire we had, and we were working for the race, because we are very worried for the race, of course, with the weight. But to be honest, I wasn't expecting a pole position. All the guys, the engineers, simulate and they predict a pole position. I wasn't agree with them, but they were right.
You've got Nicky right behind you. Now, he is showing that he is very, very quick, and he doesn't, of course, have the AT competition ballast.
Yeah, absolutely. He's quick. Everybody is quick, because the top 5 is in 2-3 tenths, something like that. So it's very tight. That will be tough for the race, but we will fight.
And you're going to keep fighting, despite, obviously, you know, I imagine you want to shed some ballast.
Yeah, of course, but should be better for us for Budapest, because we will probably stay at the 80 kilo, but some others will carry on some weight, so it will be different.
Great stuff. It's good to see you back on pole.
Well, it's always nice when the engineers predict a pole, the driver says it can't happen, and he is proved wrong. Incidentally, Jose Maria Lopez will be investigated by the stewards for, and this is the correct use of the word, mimsing on his in-lap. They didn't use that, but for discrepancies on the in-lap. Basically, he was fannying around and not getting back to the pits and getting out of the way of the next driver, who he knew would be following him, who would be on a quick lap. And as we saw, although he didn't necessarily hinder the car behind, it's not really the sort of thing that you want to be doing. So unless he's got a very good excuse for why the car was going slower, then he might, well, he'll probably end up with a reprimand, because he didn't actually inhibit anybody. So the cars are now going to be refueled and retired as we get ready for Mach 3. Meanwhile, Ivan Muller will take another breath of fresh air and then put the helmets on. And Richard, compare and contrast what we're going to have to do here to what happened in I keep saying that, in Paul Ricard, with a nice long back straight and a few big wide open corners. Here, aero dependency is quite a lot higher in the quick corners than it is at the end of the Mistral straight, and there's a lot more turns and a lot harder to see, so it's going to put an awful premium on the driver's ability to deal with slipstream and traffic.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, in a straight piece of track, the lead car punches a big hole in the air for the other cars to go through, less resistance, that car goes faster. The problem is, when cars follow each other through turns, the lead car disturbs the air, and then that washes the air off the car behind, giving it less downforce.
Team radio from Lada.
We have to protest. Even if I lost only a tenth, I mean, that would have meant pole. I don't understand why that guy did that.
And, you know, and that's why, okay, and clearly from Nicky Katzberg's reaction there, and this is when he's still on the fast lap, he's talking to the team on the radio going, come on, what's going on? He's on his qualifying lap here, and he comes, and on the X of the corner, not on the apex, but on the exit, where he needs the speed to carry him to the next turn, he has to avoid a Citroen that's got no business to be there. It's inherent on the driver who's just done his lap to hurry up back to the pits and not even remotely impede anybody else. And so, yeah, Lopez might be in problem. And he said, you know, we have to protest even if it was only a tenth. He didn't miss pole by a tenth. He missed pole by 40% of that margin. Absolutely. By 400, so that definitely was enough of a hindrance for him not to get pole position.
And to be honest, even if Jose Maria didn't put himself in that position, didn't impede him in any way, don't put yourself in that position. Yeah. Why take the risk?
But Nicky clearly felt that with a car on the exit curb, he had to tighten the line, couldn't get on the throttle early enough. We're talking 40 thousandths of a second. 41 thousandths quicker, he'd have been on pole, not Ivan Muller. Oh, and it's Ivan's teammate. Not that it was a deliberate error, and we're not even remotely suggesting that, but there might actually be a penalty to pay for Lopez for that. However, all that remains to be seen. Qualifying has ended, and there's no question Ivan Muller produced an outstanding lap to put himself on the top of the qualifying pile. Busy Slovakia ring on a beautiful sunny afternoon, getting ready for the second Mach 3 team time trial of our World Touring Car Championship season. Lada, lying third in the manufacturer standings at the moment, will go first. 3 cars going out. And of course, with Citroen having 5 Citroens in the field to choose from, they have chosen one of the Sebastian Loeb Racing drivers. It'll be Mehdi Banani, and the other 2 will field all 3 of their factory drivers. So Tarquini, Valente and Katzberg for Lada go first, Banani, Muller, Lopez for Citroen go second, and third and last, the points leaders in the manufacturer standings by 1, but hey, if you win by 1, that's enough. Montero, Mikulic and Huff. As Rob alluded to, last time out, he stalled at the standing start at the beginning of Honda's run. They were then second, as they had been in the previous year's manufacturer standings. And so it was left to Citroen then to try and beat the time set by Lada. And who knows whether it'll be down to Honda this time to try and beat the time set by Lada, because as a trio, the Lada team still look very evenly matched, like the Honda trio do. And the Ladas seem to have perhaps better pace than the Citroens. We'll wait and see exactly how that transpires. That's been the case throughout free practice. Of course, with the extremis of that single qualifying lap, Ivan produced much more pace, 4 whole hundredths of a second more pace than Nicky Katzberg, but we'll have to wait and see how this works out, because it's not about 1 man or 1 lap, it's about 3 men over 2 laps.
And that's the spirit of this. It's a real team game. It's sort of cycling inspired with the peloton. And yeah, I think the guys, it'll be a very different challenge to the last circuit, that's for sure.
Well, let's hear what Lada boss Viktor Shapovalov has to say. He's with Alex.
Yeah, we've heard from Rob about what, well, Honda's sort of plan A, plan B. Is that the same for you guys? Have you got the same strategies you had last time? I mean, you guys are really showing that you've got the pace this weekend.
Yeah, we try to do the same, but you know, this exercise very unusual and maybe not the best for us as a standing start. But anyway, we try to do maximum what we can.
And the drivers, how are they feeling about it?
Now they're excited with this new competition, but then we will see.
We will indeed. Thanks, Victor.
Well, one of the great things about this is that drivers have to think about different things outside your normal envelope. You know, in the early days of the World Touring Car Championship, with some big multi-car teams and a 5-car C-Elysée entry, for instance, you saw long trains of cars going out slipstream each other during qualifying. But we haven't seen that for 5 or 6 years, maybe longer. And so everybody's got out of the habit of slipstreaming in qualifying. Qualifying now is all about your single lap on your own. It's not a sort of half-hour-long free-for-all. So this is going back to a different way of finding pace. And it's, you know, you can't sacrifice yourself for one of your teammates. All 3 of you have to be quick. So there's a degree of give and take going on here that we've not seen before at all in World Touring Cars.
But the regulations the last 3 years, the cars have been much more aero-dependent, and that makes it much more difficult to tow. Although we do see it at some circuits, where the benefits outweigh the negatives. But yeah, obviously this is the name of the game, is to get all 3 cars over the line as quickly as possible. And on the same piece of track, the best way to do that is to give each other a bit of a tow.
And of course, we don't have the Imolas, the Monzas, the Spa-Francorchamps with those ultra-long, high-speed sections. So that slipstreaming effect is less of an overall balance. And you know, we used to see a driver towing up down a straight, and then the tow car would just pull out of the way, sacrifice his lap to allow the other guy to get another few kilometres an hour into the first turn or off the back straight or wherever it was. And we didn't need to see in Paul Ricard, you know, the towing car pulling away and dropping to the back of the line in the way that they might do in cycling. You know, you break the air, and then at a certain given point, you drop back to the back of the queue and you get a little bit of breath, and the next guy breaks the air. You know, this doesn't go on for half an hour. This is just for 2 laps, but we might need to see that. Certainly we heard teams talking about, and Honda were talking about the possibility of the leading car dropping back on the straight and tucking in behind, but they never quite got to rehearse that, having 2 excursions into the gravel.
No, and we'll have to see how the philosophy, like I said, this circuit doesn't lend itself to that, but this is obviously a very sort of niche event, this Mach 3 concept, so we'll have to see how the teams get on with that. But yeah, to be honest, even the best drivers in the best teams, for some reason, whenever you employ a towing strategy, it always seems to have some issue or niggle. And that's why teams at those circuits practice it a lot, because it's worth a lot of time. But yeah, the racing driver book of excuses comes out quite a lot when it comes to towing. And nobody quite does as they're told they're supposed to do. So it is quite complicated, and you know, it's like flying in formation. It is quite a challenge, and it's a different challenge to what the racing drivers have to go through, you know, week in, week out through their careers. So it always seems to throw up something.
Now, the first challenge is getting off the line, and the reason that's a challenge is you start side by side, so there's not necessarily a guarantee that the guy who's supposed to lead will make it first to the first corner. The other thing is that you don't start this when you break the timing beam. When the lights go off, that's when the time starts. So if you take too long getting off the line, you are giving speed away.
10, 9, 8, 7.
Well, that may not have gone quite as expected. Now, if that count was live, then they missed it by a long way. They went too soon. We didn't see the lights change, but this is exactly what happened with Honda last time out, is that Rob Huff stalled at the start, but he was nowhere near as far back. Now, the other two, we talked to Honda afterwards and said, you know, they said to the guys, like, push on, because Huffy will still get a toe on the Mistral. These guys now need to slow down. It's about the last car, not the first across the line.
There was a mistake on the system. The countdown was completely wrong.
Okay, so Katzberg stalled because we heard his radio counting him down to the start, and the others went at 7, not at 0, and therefore he was caught out because the others were watching the lights and he was distracted by the countdown and stalled the car. Or this, yeah, something odd went on there. But it is the final car across the line that will define the time elapsed for the team.
Even Shapovalov there is having a wry smile to himself, because there's no point getting angry at that point. It's already gone very wrong in the first split second. So, yeah, it's not working out well for the Lada team, which is such a shame, because this is probably one of the Mach 3s that they would be well placed to win. So it is a shame.
And they came so close to winning in Paul Ricard against the Citroën team. Let's hear what Hugo Valent's team have got to say.
Vous continuez pour le moment, on verra dans le deuxième tour. On verra dans le deuxième tour.
Okay, something about from Philippe Leloup, his engineer, about the second lap. I'm not quite sure what that was. But Katzberg on his own is just going to have to push as hard as he can. Luckily, he produced the fastest single lap from the Ladas, so at least he knows he's got that in. And these guys, there are two ways of doing this. Either they go hell for leather and devil take the hindmost, and Katzberg does what he can do, or they slow down and try and tow him down the back straight into the final corner, or out of the final corner and up to the line, and give him a few extra hundreds. But, you know, you can't slow down and try and turn around for 2 laps now. It's just not going to happen. You're just going to be so far off the case. And actually, sort of what needs to happen is that the second car in the queue needs to slow down a little more than the first car, because you can't end up with the front 2 guys running into each other while Katzberg's trying to catch you. Otherwise, you could end up kiboshing the entire weekend. And Katzberg has overcooked it in turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, but more worryingly, he massively overcooked it in turn 2. And to be honest, when you're this far back, as a team manager, team principal, I'd be pretty ticked off that you're risking the car to that level when you're already that far behind, because that car is starting on the front row of the grid tomorrow.
Oh, left front wheel has come off, or he's picked up a puncture. He's picked up a puncture, and that may well be why it ran a little, or quite a lot wider in turn 2, or it might be a legacy of going wide in turn 2.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, the stone here is sourced from a local quarry, and it's very coarse and it's very sharp. It's almost like a flint, and it's not uncommon to see punctures here. So yeah.
So the Citroëns
That was like the
now
biggest fuck up ever. What
have
happened
the
with the countdown and the red
left
light? I
the
mean,
pit lane?
come on.
Or the pit lane is closed, but Nicky Katzberg is now stranded, doesn't want to drive the car any further on the rim, understandably, has pulled out of the way and is waiting for recovery. Well, frustration, obviously, from the drivers. They're very fired up before this. Now, there's air in that on the way in, isn't there? Runs out wide, finds some gravel, and where's the deflation? Can't see it there. Well, that's them immediately saying, stop, stop, stop. Don't tear the left front corner up just because you've got a puncture and you're in a hurry to get back to the pits, yeah. We're not going to win this. We'll come third anyway, so... finds out as he turns in, or actually he'll have found out the moment he got onto the brakes, won't he, that something was definitely wrong, and will have then been in let's try and rescue this mode rather than anything else. I'm
just surprised at how much he was pushing that far back, because I mean really it was already over, so yeah, I'm surprised at that. But
well, you know, they had a miscue. There's no guarantee that none of the others will. We know the Honda did last time. You know, Rob's car fortunately refired immediately, and he was able to get going within almost a second or second and a half. You know, Nicky, it didn't fire so quickly. He was 3 or 4 seconds back. But there's certainly no guarantee that all the Citroens will get off the line. They've got a very sophisticated launch system. You could give it to me and I'd fluff it up. So, you know, however. Now, this is an open goal for Citroën because Lada have not recorded a time, because obviously Nicky Katsberg never got to the line and won't. So Citroën now have to beat Honda, and Honda have to beat Citroën, and the second quickest team last time in Paul Ricard are not in the equation.
Yeah, the only balancing factor is that you'd say that as an average, Honda have got 3 stronger drivers in this than Citroën have. So despite the fact that Citroën seem to be the quicker car, probably net, the driver lineup for the Honda is slightly stronger.
Yeah. Shouldn't be an awful lot in it, really, should there?
No, so hopefully we've still very much got a bit of a race on our hands for Mach 3 this afternoon.
Well, what we had in Paul Ricard was a very close finish when Citroën looked comfortably ahead after 1 lap, and then suddenly the gap was being massively eroded, and in the end they won by 0.03 of a second. And we had the disaster for Honda with the stall.
So do not take any risk with track limit, because Lada will not score points.
Yeah, don't take any risks because Lada will not score points. So there you see, holding the clutch and the brake and the clutch together. Citroën on the line, ready for the start of their run through Mach 3 here in Slovakia. Everybody releases the handbrake and the clutch levers at the same time, foot on the throttle. The electronics take care of all the wheel spin and everything else, and it'll be Jose Maria Lopez. Should be Ivan Muller who tucks in behind him, but it looks like Bennani is on the inside line, and then he has to slow a little, less than ideally, to let Muller go through into second. So as was the case in Paul Ricard, the season opener, Mehdi Bennani is the Lanterne Rouge, the man on the back of the chase pack, or on the back of this little pack. They safely negotiate turn 2.
Mehdi's pace was good in qualifying, actually, despite where he qualified. He's actually only 2/10 off Ivan's time in that session.
Yeah.
So hopefully he'll be able to come good for the Citroën squad.
Well, now he is 4.8 seconds up on what Lada produced at that stage, but then of course Nicky Katsberg had stalled on the line, whereas Mehdi Bennani didn't. So that's how much that stall cost Lada just in the first 3 corners, 2 corners and a braking zone.
Yeah, and as we know, there is no tortoise and hare fairy tale for Lada on that one.
Not on this one.
No, really will be between the Hondas, because I think that they've got a probably slightly stronger lineup. So let's see what they can do after this. But and Citroën know that, so that they will be pushing.
Well, Lopez in this case has the easy job, doesn't he? All he's got to do is do 2 flying laps and not mess them up. Muller a little harder, because when they get into turn 2 on this lap, he'll be in the dirty air at sort of qualifying pace, but in a race situation behind Lopez. In fact, it'll be the same here. Muller's front end will be trying to wash out, because all the turbulent air spilling off Lopez's car will not be helping. You can bet that when Citroën were in the wind tunnel designing the car for aero, they were also looking at how much turbulence they could leave behind without creating themselves extra drag, because that's what you do in a wind tunnel. And then Bennani, that's probably a sensible distance back, because he can close on the back straight and down towards the finish line again. If he's tucked up under Ivan's bumper going into turn 2 now at full race pace on fresh tyres, then he's definitely not going to make it out.
The other thing is, you're actually surprised how far back you still get an aerodynamic benefit, particularly in a straight line. So sometimes it does look deceiving, but it's still providing quite a big effect.
Yeah. A good half a second back, you can be a couple of 100 metres back at this pace. And again, you know, the same deal with Bernani. He wasn't a couple of 100 metres back, but I bet he felt the car felt different in the turbulence than it did when it was on its own in qualifying into turn 2. So Honda go out on their warm-up lap, and they will head to the start-finish line. Citroën are doing the same, but at a slightly impressive pace. Bernani's lap at the end of the first lap from a standing start was a 2:11.529. And it will be on Bernani's time around these 2 laps that all else will be judged, or that Honda will be judged against, let's say. So it is down to this 2-car shootout or 2-team shootout. Bernani's not going to get much of an effective tow down the back straight. As we saw in Paul Ricard, the 2 factory Citroën drivers have cleared off. Would have been useful if Ivan, might have been more useful if Ivan had slowed a little off the back of Lopez to at least give Mehdi some kind of an improved tow down the straight, but at least Bernani gets the car turned in neatly into the penultimate turn, and out of the final left-hand kink comes to the line. And it's a 4-minute 17.233. That is the target that our Honda trio will have to beat. Hard to read, isn't it? You know, you don't know whether that's a good couple of laps or an average couple of laps, or whether it's going to be very close or a cakewalk. So nobody's got any experience of this here. The only one we've ever done before was in Paul Ricard, and that doesn't translate. So, you know, it's very hard to read. It's very hard to predict, but for an engineer, it's very hard to predict as well. I guess the software, their simulator software, helps them.
Yeah, it's always slightly less accurate when you look at things like this, but yeah, for sure, they will have done that. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see what these Honda boys can do. Probably the strongest Net 3 driver lineup, but not the quickest car here this weekend, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on.
Now, the deal this weekend is that they have nominated a driver to be the time-scoring driver. However, if he makes a better start than everybody else and happens to be leading into the first corner, then do you stick with the way that it ended up? Do you try and go back to what you had planned in the first place? Or is your basic plan, okay, guys, busk it? You know, just whatever happens, just go with it. And we'll try and give you a little bit more information when we get to whatever we get to.
Yeah, they should slightly stagger themselves off the line, but the best laid plans of mice and men, as always, doesn't quite go to plan, as we saw with the Lada team.
Yeah. So, 15-second board is shown, and the Honda team are ready to go. Final run in Mach 3 at the Slovakia ring. Beautiful afternoon for time trialling. Away go the 3 Hondas as one. Everybody left the grid, so Rob Huff mentally ticks that box off. Safely done. Thiago Monteiro to the driver's left on the outside into turn 1 is the man who has been nominated to set the time. Norby takes up the running at the front. Now he left from the middle of the grid lineup. Standing start, complete 2 laps, and the total time that the slowest, the last car in the train takes to go round will be judged against Citroën's 4 minutes 17.23 total time.
Well, they managed to get all 3 cars through turn 2, which is an improvement on the strategy this morning.
So they've improved on Paul Ricard by not stalling. They've improved on their training run by not going off yet. And they are up on Citroën.
Looking good so far.
I think we should leave the booth now and wait for it all to happen before we jinx them any further.
Absolutely.
Well, 1300ths of a second up in the first sector. That's very good news indeed. Always better to be starting in front than coming from behind. Ooh, Thiago gets in deep behind Rob Huff. And for those of you who may not have seen the opening races of the season, where were you? Norbert Mikelish with grey and red highlights on his white Honda there. And the other two Castrol cars, Montero and Huff, with red, white and green, the Castrol Honda colours. And the big difference between the two of them, door mirror colours. Thiago's got red on his car, Huffy has got green, and they both have their national colours on the roof as well, should you happen to get a high-up shot. 0.26, so they're opening up their advantage. But just to remind you that Citroën led Lada by 1.9 seconds at the end of one lap of Paul Ricard, and only won in Paul Ricard by 30 thousandths of a second. It's not over at the end of the first lap. And there is your salient proof. The gap has come down from 2600ths to 1600ths. Game on. So now Norby, Richard, seems to have a little more distance over Rob than Rob has over Thiago.
Probably okay in the fast section, because like I said, it does go back quite a long way, but as he gets into the twisty stuff,
you're not going to get much of a toe in the twisty stuff. The problem with having a car close to you in the twisty stuff is you start to lose your apexes a little.
Yeah, Norby just runs a little bit wide there, but yes. Oh my God, look how close it is now.
1,000th of a second in it.
It does not get closer than that.
It does. It could be a dead heat. But it doesn't get much closer. I'll give you that.
Okay, it couldn't be more closer without it being a dead heat.
Mach 3 doesn't get tougher than this. 1,000th of a second in it as they exit sector 2, which should be the best for them, or rather should have been the worst for Citroën. Will they have built their advantage?
Huffy got a bit deep there, but hopefully didn't cost Thiago too much time.
Now, down the back straight, Huffy might be in a position to allow Thiago to slingshot by inside him, but it doesn't matter where Thiago finishes, it matters where the final car of the three finishes, whoever's driving it. What's the gap looking like to Thiago? That's not bad, is it, back from Rob? He's going to get a good slipstream here. Shouldn't be too close behind him under braking. Out to 1300ths of a second. Honda could well add victory in Mach 3 here to their manufacturer's championship lead. They are the points leaders by 1 over Citroën. And they will extend that advantage unless there's a calamity here. Thiago is right tucked up under Rob's bumper. He's getting extra toe to the line. And it is... Oh.
Well, now, hang on a minute. I mean,
it is a dead heat.
It does get closer.
It is a dead heat.
Closer.
So it is victory for Citroën and for Honda. That's ridiculous.
You could not write it.
It's ridiculous. It is a dead... I'm sorry, that completely lost. We're going, well, who won that one? It's a dead heat. 1,000th apart after sector 2. And they lost that 1,000th of a second advantage in the final sector. A dead heat in Mach 3 and a disaster for one of the teams. Okay, that's ridiculous. We may now have reached the zenith of this.
I think even the teams are now looking at sporting regs to work out how that now gets declared in a dead heat.
Wow. Well, the margin of victory for Citroën over Lada in Paul Ricard was 30 thousandths of a second. The margin of victory here, 0 thousandths of a second. It is a dead heat. Mach 3 does not get tougher than this. That's very, very good. A great result. And again, you have to say, we sort of figured Citroën were likely to be the winners in France. Not sure that we figured they were likely to be the winners here. I thought Lada had a very good shot at beating them and potentially also beating Honda. But as it was, Honda who had the miscue in Paul Ricard. This time it is Lada who miscue, and Honda and Citroën tied, so they both get 10 manufacturers' points each, I'm assuming. Don't think anybody's written down the rule as to what happens in a dead heat. They both won.
we have the same time of Citroën, equal time. So we score 5 points as Citroën. 5 points Honda, 5 points Citroën, 3 points Lada.
Well, exactly the same time, right? 0.00 the same. Incredible. Well done, guys.
Exactly, as it says on my timing screen, gap 0.000.
It is incredible when you consider that you know, it's over 12 kilometres.
Yeah.
There's 3 cars flat out over 3 kilometres, and 2 completely different brands, completely different drivers, completely different design teams.
Yep.
And over that distance, they are exactly the same time.
For all sorts of different reasons and in all sorts of different places. And in fact, Citroën kept their speed up better in the second lap than the Hondas did, because Honda had a lead at the end of lap 1 and it went away from them.
Which, when you consider Banani dropped back as well.
Yeah, well, it shows how much quicker the other 2 guys were going, as we saw in Q3. They found more pace in qualifying trim with low fuel load and all the other stuff.
The
And
mind
again,
boggles.
yeah, it does. It really does. OK, so there's the deal. They don't get 10 points each. They get half of 10 points each. So thank you very much for that thoughtful radio traffic. Answered a question they didn't even know that I had asked. So Lada with that little miscue. Don't set a time. They get points for being third, though. And the points for the win are shared between Citroën and Honda. So Honda lead by 1 point in the championship after Mach 3, which is for manufacturers' points only. So very good value indeed from Mach 3. Okay, I wait with great interest to see what the scriptwriters have in store for the Hungaroring next week. Snow? No, they've used that card today at Silverstone and Brands Hatch and Donington Park. I don't know what else. There needs to be something. We've really ramped up the stakes immediately, though. I'll tell you what it will be, of course, because it's the Hungaroring. Honda will go last, and there'll be 10 million Hungarians jumping up and down for Norby. Citroën will miscue their start or do something. The cars will go off. They won't score, and it'll be a nail-biter between Lada.
You cynic.
And,
you cynic.
Well, no, but that's where that's where those fairy tale stories come, isn't it? You know, it's the okay, that would never happen in real life. Things that happen in real life.
Yeah. No, what a great session, though.
Yeah. Very good fun, very entertaining. Paul Ricard was very entertaining, and I think we just trumped that one. So that's... Don't remember seeing Thompson and Chilton out in Q3. But anyway, let's not split hairs. That's a very good run from Mehdi Banani and his Citroën teammates to take a dead heat victory in Mach 3.
We score exactly the same time as Citroën.
Yeah, but was it okay? Because I wanted to give you...
Yeah, I think you probably slowed down a bit too much in the last straight.
It was very difficult to judge accelerating uphill, so...
Well, they are Norby as the leader of the train, slowing down to try and give Thiago a fraction more. You know, we've tried this twice. There's no rehearsals. They tried practicing a little bit in free practice, and that didn't work. So as the season progresses, manufacturers will become a little more familiar with this, but fun stuff.
Well, I'm here with the 3 Honda boys. Now, that was not in the script. A tie between you and Citroën. Talk me through it. Rob, let's start with you. You had a brilliant start there.
I don't think anyone would have seen that coming, for sure. Second time in Mach 3, and we've got a complete dead heat, which is pretty impressive. I think we work very well as a team together. I think it's clear this weekend we've not got the fastest car, with the Citroëns, you know, sort of 4 tenths up the road from us. So I think to pull that out the bag from the 3 of us was really good. And you know, we had a bit of strategy. Norby at the front took control, and then he was minding the gap because, you know, the slipstream's all important here. So you know, I think there's a few more places we can improve, but on the whole, I think a grand job by everyone.
What about from your opinion? Thiago, you were at the back, you were the pace, sort of the pace finisher, if you like. What was it like from your side?
Yeah, big responsibility. No, but obviously we have a strategy, and things went quite smoothly, to be honest. And pretty much as planned, we pushed to a certain level. And yeah, as Rob said, Norby did a good job to balance a little bit the level of everybody, to keep tight and use a good slipstream. So in the end, yeah, I think we all did a very good job. But congratulations.
You have to improve the start for tomorrow, for the races, no?
I have my secrets.
Boys, well done. Well done.
And you can see how much that they're enjoying it as well. Okay, it didn't go so well for Honda last time out, but it went very well for them this time. They pegged Citroën back, and as Rob said, you know, Citroën have shown in qualifying they still have the pace despite all that extra weight. So we'll wait and see how the weight balance turns out. Of course, manufacturers' points are also scored by qualifying, and Citroën, 2 of their cars fared better than the 2 Hondas. So, in fact, Citroën have taken the lead of the manufacturer standing from Honda. And Citroën and Honda dead heat after Mach 3. Well, that brings World Touring Car action to a conclusion for Saturday here at the Slovakia Ring. Oh dear, it's time for us to go and pop out